Hi and hello watch fans, and welcome to another edition of The Real Time Show with me, your friendly neighbourhood watchmaker Rob Nuds. Today I'm joined by two guests, our good friend Nicholas Bowman-Scargill of Fears Watches based in Bristol, and another very worldly, very interesting, very experienced man, ultra-endurance athlete and mental health advocate, Angus Collins. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much. Really excited for this conversation. Cheers.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's great to be speaking with you again, Rob.
Yeah, Nicholas, where are you? Because we can hear the chatter of activity in the background, and you're obviously on the move somewhere, doing something that CEOs do, classy CEOs do, you know, living the high life, no doubt.
Oh, yeah. I'm back in Geneva for the third time this year. Sadly, I realize I've been in Geneva more times than I've been to visit my parents this year. So I'm doing well from the watch CEO front, but bad from the loving son. But no, I'm in Geneva for the EPHJ watch show, which is it's really interesting actually, because this is not about built watches. It's purely about the components that go into watches. So all you see is just, you know, hundreds and hundreds of booths selling crowns, cases, movements, dials, hands, the works. So this is where we come to do our shopping, meet all of our suppliers, because as people may know, we always get all the components made to our designs and spec individually from expertise. So literally there are stands upstairs in this conference hall who only make spring bars. That's it. All they make day in, day out is spring bars. And for me, that's wonderful. This is where my team and I get to come and properly geek out for 4 days.
So just to pull back the curtain and give the listeners a little insight into what it's like being the CEO, managing director of a luxury watch brand, exactly where are you right now and what is your laptop balanced on?
Okay, so yes, I am in the PAL Expo conference center next to Geneva Airport. Some listeners may know this is where every April the very glamorous Watches and Wonders show is hosted. So we're literally in the same building, just there's no champagne, there's no fancy carpets, there's no fancy booths. It's very, very raw. But to get a bit of quiet for the recording, I've currently got my laptop balanced on a bin downstairs in the entranceway, with the security person giving me very dodgy looks. So yeah, this is the glamour. So hopefully my laptop won't fall off and fall into the bin.
Great. Okay. Well, there you go, people. It's not all caviar and cocktails. Angus, where do we find you in the world?
I'm currently at home. I should be on my boat, but I'm based in the south of the UK in Hampshire. And yeah, I'm in a much more comfortable position than Nicholas is at the moment. Behind the desk and nice and dry, and I've got a lovely table with my laptop on it. So I think I'm winning that one.
Well, you've earned that comfort, obviously, because as you mentioned, your boat, which if any of our listeners don't know, is where Angus spends a lot of his time, is far less comfortable than even a laptop balanced on a bin in the middle of Geneva. So before we get to the explanation of what it's like to spend time on board during oceanic crossings in a manual rowboat, give us an insight to your background. Tell us where you came from and how you find yourself as a prominent mental health advocate.
Yeah, I come from a family of adventurous souls. So I was born out in Guam, just off the Marianas Trench. My parents were scuba diving instructors. My uncle was an America's Cup sailor. My grandpa was a world champion sailor as well. Cousins in the Royal Marines, and my sister that works has also rowed across oceans. So as a family, we're very good on the water, but we're not great on dry land.
That is an incredible lineage. I'm just gobsmacked, adding more and more profession. And the sister who's also rowed across an ocean. That's one heck of a family. Your Christmas dinners must be interesting.
Yeah, I feel very sorry for my sister's boyfriend and my partners and other family members, because we sit around at Christmas dinner or Sunday roast and share stories of wild adventures, and a lot of people just go, there is no way I have any interest or reason to want to be interested in what you guys are talking about. It's very different, but we all love it. It's got where we're happiest is out on the water or near the water, and I'm privileged to have that. I kind of grew up sailing, windsurfing, kite surfing, and I've always been drawn to the water. I started off as a pretty good swimmer and then moved into other sports. And always knew that I wanted to work in adventure in this world of ultra endurance and adventure, but I had no idea what that meant. But having seen other family members kind of succeed in what they wanted to do on the water, I knew there was a way if I was inquisitive enough and pushed hard enough. And yeah, now I find myself deeply entrenched in the world of ocean rowing. And yeah, I suppose in that sense, I kind of succeeded in my goals of working in this beautiful world, but that kind of came with some problems as well, which I'm sure we'll touch on.
I'm sure we will. Knowing your family background now, it makes a little more sense to me as to how you were able to set so many incredible records and so many youngest records as well. The youngest person to have sailed across all the oceans?
So I was the youngest youngest team to row across the Indian Ocean. So that's from Australia. We're meant to go to Mauritius, but I landed up in the Seychelles. Could be due to a big storm and a few problems. It could be worse, but it did add 30 days onto our crossing time, which... Yeah, there was a bit of a nightmare that we're heading out to Mauritius and we were basically blown north in a storm that it was at the same time that the Malaysian airline went down, and they sent out a search and rescue vessel to try and find the black box of that aeroplane. And that search and rescue vessel had to turn around because they were stuck in a big storm. And we were also in that storm in a 9-meter rowing boat with 4 kind of 25-year-olds, not really knowing how much trouble we were getting ourselves into, and then quickly realized we're never going to hit Mauritius. So had to make the decision, do we row past Mauritius and then get towed in, which would have counted as a successful ocean crossing, but not as a unassisted ocean crossing? Or do we arrogantly think that we can just add a little bit more time on and redirect up to the Seychelles? So yeah, it was lovely finishing in the Seychelles, but I think we deserved that rest by the time we got there.
Yeah, well earned, I would say so. And I apologize, I said sailing instead of rowing. So just for our listeners to be clear, this is a man-powered boat. You have a crew of 4. Do you normally row with?
Yeah, so yeah, every expedition I've done so far in ocean rowing has been as a 4-man team. So we're in got a 9-meter boat. Generally, you've got 2 people rowing and then 2 people resting. So we have a small cabin on each end where you can sleep, you can rest, but it essentially is the size of a coffin. And then we work on a 2 hours on, 2 hours off basis around the clock, 24 hours a day. So 2 hours rowing, 2 hours sleep, 2 hours rowing, 2 hours sleep. And we did that for 70 days or 71 days for the Indian Ocean. So we're completely self-sufficient. We've got solar panels on the boat that are powering a water maker. So that gives us all the water we need for the crossing. We live off freeze-dried food, which it works as fuel. I wouldn't say the chefs have nailed the flavor profile yet, but you get used to that. And then, yeah, we have the bare minimum of what we need to be safe and have a slight bit of comfort. And then it's, just row, sleep, eat, repeat.
What's it like when it comes to communication in your downtime when you're not either refueling or sleeping or tending to blisters, muscle pulls, whatever? Are you able to contact people back home? Do you have like a satellite phone?
Yeah, it's actually developed a lot over the last couple of years. But on my first crossing, we were basically reliant solely on a sat phone and satellite communication, which it's nice to be able to have communication with the outside world, but it's a very frustrating line to work with. It's very delayed, and you can't really hear what was being said. So by and large, I would only use that for a kind of, if we're in an emergency, this is how you find us. Now the satellite communication's got incredibly good. So for my next expedition, I'm going to be able to do live social media posts and send photos and videos back home, and I will actually be able to communicate with people as well as I am on dry land now, which has its pros and cons. Part of what I love about adventure is that you are able to switch off your phone and not think about emails and clients and X, Y, and Z. Whereas now there's not really an excuse, but it also does mean that I can spread the word of the cause that I'm kind of raising awareness for. We get a bigger reach now because that satellite communication has become so efficient. Yeah, as I kind of started at the beginning, I knew I wanted to work in this world of adventure. And that was literally from as young as I can remember. And I remember being at school and teachers asking me, what do you want to be when you're older, and what do you want to do? And I remember saying, I will work in this world of adventure. And I remember the teachers looking at me like I was some child that said, I want to be an astronaut. And it was a very cute proposition, but it's never going to happen. And you'll probably land up working in insurance or something else. And I did actually start going down that route. I was working in recruitment and headhunting in the city of London. And for me, that was the biggest endurance challenge I've ever taken on. I'm useless at it. I'm very bad at sitting behind a desk and doing something that I don't love. I'm very poor at executing that. So after a year of that, I realized, no, this isn't for me. And set up alongside my uncle an ocean rowing company. He had rowed the Atlantic and wanted to do it again. He had won the race as a solo rower against 2-man and 4-man teams, and then he wanted to go out again and to break the world record. And him and I kind of set this company up to build boats and then train people to row across oceans. And I absolutely loved it. I was meeting new people and a vast array of people, from ultra endurance athletes who are much physically fitter than I was and mentally stronger than I was, but then also businessmen or stay-at-home mums and students that wanted to take on a once-in-a-lifetime challenge. And I was going around the world training people, and I absolutely loved it. And then I had the opportunity to do a few rows myself, and I rowed across the Indian Ocean first, and we broke the world record there. And as you said, the youngest team to do so. I then rowed across the Atlantic twice, and first time won the race, just beat my sister, who was quick on my heels, catching up. So won the race there, but we didn't get the world record. So I came back a year later to break the world record, which we succeeded in. And kind of everything was on paper perfect. I'd set this goal of working in this world of adventure, which everyone else thought was a dream. And then by kind of my 30s, my 30th birthday, I had a pretty successful ocean rowing business, building boats, training people, going around the world, meeting interesting people, breaking world records myself, and everything on paper looked perfect. But the truth was, and it's taken me almost 5 years to work this out, I was actually deeply depressed, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. I kept on analyzing my life, thinking everything you've wanted to achieve, you have achieved. And here you are sitting in a boat, crying your eyes out that you're not happy. And it actually came to my 30th birthday that I actually decided that the world would be a better place without me, and I wasn't able to take on anyone else's stress, and I couldn't even deal with my own stress. So attempted to take my own life on my 30th birthday, and thank God that I failed at that. And it took years and years to really work out why I went through that process. And I remember talking to a doctor days after my 30th birthday, and they kind of turned around and said, you're going to be fine. You've got great friends. You've got great family. You've got a business that's working. I was living on a boat at the time. Like, for me, that was a dream. And that was the answer that I got to why am I struggling so much. And that almost made me feel worse, or it definitely made me feel worse, that I knew all of these things, and I felt selfish that I was struggling because I shouldn't. And it wasn't actually, it was about a few months later, I met my now wife, we were at Columbia Business School, and I was giving a kind of lecture on leadership skills. And she heard all these stories of me rowing across oceans and building teams and building resilient teams and how to build the winning team. And she turned around and basically called my bluff and said, there is no way that you continue to do what you do just to prove that you're resilient. There's got to be something. And she was absolutely right. I found it easier, and this sounds ridiculous saying it, I found it easier rowing across an ocean than confronting my own demons. And when I finished these rows, by and large, I succeeded and broke world records. Then I'd get a tap on the back and was able to go around the world talking about those successes. And that made me feel good. But it wasn't the reason why I was doing it. The real reason was I was running away from the demons in my head. So I've now I'm moving out of the ocean rowing world, although I am still rowing myself. I'm not training people and doing the safety for teams that are rowing across oceans. I've now put as much effort as I have into working with a charity called James's Place, who help men that are in a suicidal crisis and need a lifeline, quite literally. And I never anticipated that I would be in that position, that I needed that help. And I know there are thousands of people around the UK that need that help as well. So I'm now, I use ocean rowing and my successes in ultra endurance sports to kind of raise awareness for mental health and try and help people that are struggling. By and large, I am focusing on men. 2/3 of suicides in the UK are men. And there's a lot of pressure and stress and the stigma that comes with that about mental health. And I now try and just normalize that talking. And those who struggle, we can't struggle silently. We need to vocalize it. We need to educate people who don't struggle on how you can help people who are struggling. And we need to make sure that people who are struggling are confident enough and know that they've got a place to go and talk to someone. So I'm kind of in this balancing role of trying to do epic expeditions and break world records, but also open up and tell my story in an honest way. And hopefully that helps other people do the same thing.
What's your journey been like to recovery? Although by saying that, I'm not implying that it's something that is fixed and then never going to be something you need to address again in the future or consistently. Because I think for a lot of people who are in the pits of depression and stuck there, can't see the first step. And I'm sure there are a million first steps depending on each individual. But for you personally, what did your journey look like? Was it therapy, specifically CBT, or anything else?
Yeah, it's a yo-yo. And this is another thing that what I try and talk about is there is no right way of dealing with depression, and everyone's going to deal with different things in different ways. And for me, I found an amazing psychologist that I got on really well with and kind of hit it off pretty quickly. He was very similar to me in that he was relatively young guy, sporty, outdoorsy, so we related really quickly. And I was doing CBT therapy, but alongside also medication. So I've been on and off antidepressants for the last 5 years. And before my kind of 30th birthday, I was pretty anti-medication. I always thought there was a way that you could eat yourself healthy or train yourself to be healthy. But then when I went through this episode, I realized, no, this is something that I need professional help with. And the medication actually really, it does help me. But I've also recently learned that everything kind of has a sell-by date. And that form of therapy for me kind of disintegrated and it didn't work as well as it was initially. And actually, again, through talking to other people, talking to family members that have also gone through similar things, like there's so many different forms of therapy that you can take. And that could be a personal trainer who just gets you physically fit and that makes you healthy, makes you happy and healthy. It could be a nutritionist, it could be a psychiatrist, a psychologist. And I'm now kind of balancing all of those things, trying to work out what is the next thing that I need. Because if you had asked me when I was kind of 32, 33, I would have said I am recovered from depression. But I've now realized that sadly, this is probably something I'm going to live with for the rest of my life. And I had another kind of pretty severe downward spiral about a year ago. And that actually almost hit me harder than my first bout of depression, because that made me realize this is something that you're going to have to think about and have in the back of your mind for the rest of your life. And I'm now thinking with that attitude, as opposed to hoping it's not going to come back, it's preparing for it to come back. And that was something really, really tough for me to handle. And again, that's what I now try and talk to guys about. It's like, these are your options. It could be you just need to sit down with a friend and build a cupboard together and do something physical, kind of learning and building, and that helps you talk and open up. Or it could be that you want to go for a walk with a friend once a week, or maybe just a WhatsApp group, whatever it is. But it's a minefield trying to work out what you should do when you are struggling. So for me, the first step is always going to be talk.
Great advice, which obviously we can't reiterate enough, and the importance of communication, open communication between everybody. Now, to shine a light on these issues and the work you've been doing, the mental health advocacy that you've been pursuing over the last couple of years, you are attempting a new challenge. And this is where your relationship with fears really not began, but has manifested in something quite wonderful. So talk to us a little bit about how you got in touch with Nicholas, because you are a watch guy to begin with. You're not a typical ambassador who's just plucked from the ranks of celebrities and given a watch to wear. You actually do like watches. So tell us about your watch journey, how you came into contact with Nicholas, how the fears relationship began, and how it pertains to the Great British Odyssey.
Yeah, I'll start with the Great British Odyssey. So it was meant to be on Sunday that I leave to row around Great Britain solo. And no one has rowed around Great Britain as an individual, non-stop, completely unsupported yet. And it will be my first solo challenge. And the whole aim of that is kind of two-part. Firstly, for me to get into my own head and ask some questions that I've probably been avoiding for a while, but also, again, to talk to people, to have a platform for people to talk to me and to just spread the word about what I believe we should be doing to help mental health. So a lot of people kind of look at rowing around Britain and think, well, surely rowing across the Atlantic or the Indian Ocean is harder. And actually, rowing around Great Britain is very, very hard. You've got currents, tides, changing weather patterns, shipping lanes, whirlpools, all these things that you don't really have in the middle of the Atlantic. And I'm very excited about being out on the water again, but I'm very nervous about what those challenges are and how hard it's going to be. So to put this campaign together, I needed partners that believed in what I was doing. And with it being a great British expedition, I really wanted to have British companies that were on board that could kind of elevate what I'm doing, but also kind of sing off the same hymn sheet and agree with the story that I'm telling, and also elevate what we're doing in Britain. I always find that I do a lot of work in America, and in America, they scream and shout about success. And in the UK, it's very much, if you succeed, well done, keep it to yourself. And I wanted to help elevate some brands that are doing some amazing things here in the UK, and in turn that hopefully can believe in what I'm doing and elevate what I'm doing. And I've loved watches all of my life. But up until this expedition, I've actually always had my mechanical watch would be what I come home to. On the expedition, I would normally have a Garmin Phoenix, which is reading my heart rate variability, and how many breaths I'm taking a minute and that kind of stuff. And what I've realized over this last kind of year or so is that I can't rely on technology to tell me what my body's doing. I need to understand myself, what my body's doing. I don't need to look at a screen on a watch to tell me. So that's when I realized that actually a mechanical watch is what is needed. For me, all I need to know is what is the time, and I need that to be accurate. I don't need to know all the other fluff. So yeah, I had followed Fears for 6-7 months before reaching out to Nicholas, and had seen some of the watches they were doing, and sent Nicholas an email once. It was a Friday evening, just being like, look, this is what I'm doing. This is the cause. I love what you guys are doing. What do you think? And I really wasn't expecting a response. These sponsorship emails that I have to send out, I probably get a 99% fail rate. And Nicholas came back very quickly saying, I'm interested. Give me some time to think about it. And yeah, the next Monday, I was on my way down to Cornwall to actually watch. The boat was being built down in Cornwall, so I thought, cool, I'll swing by Bristol and let's see what Fears are about. And sat down with Nicholas, and straight away I just thought, yeah, these guys are building amazing watches the right way. They're not cutting corners. They're not screaming about their successes, but I can see their successes. And yeah, I think we hit it off really well. And the team down there are amazing. I've had some really amazing one-on-one conversations with most of the team, and they've all got beautiful souls, and that means a lot to me. And I know when I'm struggling in northwest Scotland, fighting against a strong tide, and it's hammering it down with rain, I'll look down at my watch and think, yeah, I need to pull harder, because there are companies, there are teams, and there are individuals behind this campaign that I've put a lot into it, and fears are a big part of that.
That's a lovely thing to say, and it's the sentiment that's echoed by many of us in the industry. The Fears team is beloved around the globe, largely because of the boss man. Nicholas, talk to us, mate. Tell us exactly what you thought when Angus reached out to you, because Fears and sports, not the first thing you think of.
Right, that's it. I mean, I think the number one thing I've seen since not only we announced the official timing partnership, but also the watch, which we'll discuss in a moment, is people just going like, this is the last thing I'd expect, but it also feels very natural. And the thing is, so that email that Angus sent, that Friday, I was on a train back home to North Yorkshire, and it's a 4-hour long train journey. And it's a great opportunity, end of week, before the weekend starts. Let's clear the inbox, go through the emails. And, I probably get a dozen cold emails every day with something, right? Either trying to sell me something or asking for money or sponsorship or something like this. But I always have a policy of opening every email. And, I'm sure there's spam bots which love me for that. But I open every email just to check, because I live by a life philosophy of listen carefully, opportunity knocks quietly. And so I see this email from Angus. And so I open it up and I start scan reading it. And I was like, oh, this is actually quite interesting. Okay, I'm going to put a flag next to it. I'll come back to it. I think by the time I'd got to Sheffield or Leeds, I was like, right, okay, email's cleared. Let's get back to it. And I read it and I was just like, oh my goodness, I just love this. And so I immediately fired off a reply to him and basically said, yeah, look, I'm interested. But the thing is, we're talking about the Fears team. Yes, I may be a managing director, but anything like this is going to be hugely disruptive. It's going to require everyone to be pulling together. And so I was like, I can't just say yes. I need to actually discuss it with everyone back in Bristol and make sure that, this is me going off on a flight of fancy. But I think the thing that immediately caught my eye was two things. The first one was, I'm a bit of an old school romantic. Like, I love that sense of adventure. I love reading about stories of, people going to the South Pole, going to, up Everest, all of that kind of adventure spirit. And the fact is, to be perfectly honest, the last, decade has been pretty dismal globally. Now, I'm an optimist, so I always believe in, tomorrow will be better than today. But, it's all pretty negative. And then here you are reading about a chap who is basically going to conquer something that has not been done before. And is it something that needs to be done? Not necessarily, but that makes it even more special. It's the fact that it's going to be one person doing this amazing challenge. So that was the first thing that caught my eye. But then the second thing was the mission. So the challenge is the road, but the mission is to raise £250,000 for James's Place. And so I read a bit more about James's Place. I went on the website and, I'm someone who sadly has lost several friends to suicide. And so it's something that I'm very aware about. And reading the work they're doing, reading Angus's story, I was like, yeah, this is something I really want to get behind. This is something I really want to see if I can use Fears to help. And I basically spent the whole weekend sat in front of a computer, looking at a Gantt chart and going, right, it's the end of January now. He's going to be rowing in June. How on earth do we create a watch from scratch in that few months? And also we've got launch schedules and events and all the things that we have as a growing watch company. But I was like, no, I'm going to find a way to do this. And then I remember on the Monday morning, I was back in Bristol and I basically called like my whole senior team together and I said, right, I want to pitch you on this. And I ran through what he was doing. I ran through the Gantt and I got to the end waiting for the normal barrage of questions, pushback, the things that a good team should do, challenge me. And everyone was just like, we have to do this. Absolutely. So I then got the whole company together and said, right, if we do this, it's going to involve everyone having to pull together. Everyone's going to have to do a little bit extra. And again, everyone was on board. And that day, Angus came to Bristol. Things started moving very quickly. And I remember seeing the way that the team looked at him and listened to him. And then when Angus went, everyone was just like, what an incredible person. I mean, I don't think I have, a single male colleague in their 20s who doesn't want to grow up to be Angus. It was just this thing where everyone was just in absolute awe. And I was like, yeah, everyone is feeling what I'm feeling. This feels like something we have to do. And I think it must have been the next day we basically formalized it and said, yes, we would be absolutely delighted to be the official timekeeping partner for the Great British Odyssey.
It's a fantastic story, and the watch you've managed to pull together in, well, I know exactly how incredible a feat that is in a few months, is one that I wouldn't have imagined, but one that I really can't wait to get on my wrist. I think, to be fair, it's my favourite Brunswick of all time. I didn't expect it to be such a suitable case for this application, but it looks perfectly at home, and looks perfectly at home on Angus's wrist. What do you make of the watch yourself, Angus?
Oh, I absolutely love it. The fits perfect. And there's no distractions on it. I love the fact how pure and clean it is. The logo. So my logo is a whiskey logo, which is it's a flag that you fly if you're on a sailing ship of the old days. That basically means I'm in need of immediate assistance. And the Fears team managed to get that printed onto the dial, and it pops and it looks stunning. And I've got a fairly good watch collection, but none of the watches I have make me smile as much as I do when I look down at my wrist and see this one. So yeah, it's something that I'll cherish the rest of my life. And to have the opportunity to sit down with the Fears designer and say, cool, this is what's important for me, and hear because I like watches, but I don't know a lot of the terminology behind. But then hearing Nicholas and the team talk like, cool, we need to use this kind of surface so that the glare is less, or we need the loom to be higher so that when he is rowing at 3 o'clock in the morning, he knows when his shift is over, etc., etc. And to be part of that, it's a really unique opportunity and something that, yeah, I'm very, very grateful for.
So just to run through some of those necessary traits that you'd want in a watch for our listeners, I assume you want comfort, durability, a decent water resistance, legibility, daytime and nighttime. And this model, or the experimental 01 that's been created specifically for your journey, offers all of those things in spades. But the civilian version, the Brunswick Odyssey, also is a high-performing tool watch. So let's run through some of those specs now for our listeners. So what we have here is a 40mm wide, 46.5mm lug-to-lug, 11.06 millimeter thick watch, which is for this specific release, it's mounted on an Erica's original strap, isn't it? And it does come with a blue FKM rubber by Deluxe as well. But that orange strap, that really transforms the whole character of it. And with that 11.06 millimeter thinness, it doesn't stand too high on the wrist anyway, because with the original strap, the fabric passes underneath the case and through both of the spring bars, right? And what is unusual about the Brunswick, which people may not have been aware of, is the fact that it is water resistant to 150 meters as it is. And obviously we're hoping you're not going to go in the drink at all, right? You don't, do you ever take a swim?
Yeah. Occasionally I'll have to get under the boat to scrub the bottom of the boat to make her go faster, but we're talking hopefully only 1.5 meters deep. But just in case, it's good to have 150 meters.
Yeah, I mean, it's got the lovely cushion-shaped case, which obviously is quite good for deflecting blows anyway. And the curved sapphire is treated with Ardour anti-reflective coating on both sides, a basically unscratchable AR coating. Now, Nicholas, describe to us the differences between the civilian model that we've just spoken about and also the experimental 01 that will be on Angus's wrist for the adventure.
The specification on that is even more beefed up than normal. So the watch on Angus's wrist doesn't have spring bars. It's actually got welded in fixed bars, because we realized that when you're rowing for up to 18 hours a day, the spring bars are constantly moving, which means there's a higher chance that they could wear out. Whereas, of course, fixed bars are solid. Then when it came to the case finishing, we needed to go for a sandblasted, satinized finish so that there's no risk of the sun reflecting in the eyes, because that's, Angus is outside, right? He's not in a canopy. There isn't shade. With the water resistance, we decided for his watch to actually upgrade it to a full 300 meters because, okay, he might be going for a little swim, as he mentioned, under the boat to clean it. But the fact is, this watch is going to be hit and splashed with salty water all the time. And that means that you need that 300 meters, not for the depth, but just to ensure it's, when constantly being hit with salt water, there's no risk at all. And I mean, there's a whole host of other things we did specifically for his watch. Time testing we put it through a new precision time testing, which basically means the watch will run 0 + 1 second a day. And then ensuring things like the special luminescence, the new top grade of X2 Superluminova. So it will glow longer than I think about 12, 14 hours. It's incredible. I mean, everything that's gone into that watch on his wrist is being done purely from the place of what does he need? Because I was very honest with Angus. I said to him when we met in person in Bristol, I said, look, I'm someone who can't even swim. So I've never been in a rowing boat. The only boats I've ever been in have cocktail lounges and silver service and fine dining and, theaters, and cigar lounges, basically cruise liners. I've never been on a boat which didn't have a roof on it. So I said, look, I need you to tell me what things you will be going through and experiencing. And this is where I was very, very pleased working with not only our design department, but also our operations department with our engineer, is working out basically, we have the technical knowledge to do this, but right now, up until this point, we've only ever used it in dressier, more classic pieces. And we were like, well, actually, we have all the ingredients to make the ultimate tool watch. So let's do it. Let's flex that muscle. Let's actually, go for it. And so that's how we created Experimental 01. And in fact, it's got 8 specific modifications and things you mentioned, like the Argure anti-reflective coating. So this is a special armor-plated AR coating on the crystal that basically can't be scratched off. It can't remove. The AR coating actually costs several times the cost of the crystal itself. That's the extent we go to. Everything on this has been beefed up. And we've carried several of these things over to the Brunswick Odyssey edition, which, as I say, is sort of our civilian version, which is a 100-piece limited edition. But we're donating a portion of the sales from those 100 watches to James's Place to help with the mission of raising £250,000.
And what will happen to the Experimental 01 piece? Will that stay on your wrist for future adventures, Angus? Will it go to a museum? Will you auction it off? What's the plan for that one?
In the end, we built 6 Experimental 01 watches because we wanted a prototype, which will go into our archive. We then also have kept back 04 and 05, which we're using those for promotional work. But Angus is taking with him 01, 02, and 03. And some people said to me, well, hang on, he can only wear one watch at a time. Why is he taking 3 of them? And I said, well, look, this is TNT. This is a tool, not a toy. And, he is on this boat and he can't take the unsupported part of this row is that he can't have things dropped off to him or airdropped to him. So if the watch was to fail, and look, touch wood, it won't, but no watch has gone through this before. No mechanical watch has gone through this before. So if the watch was to fail, he needs to have a backup there and then ready to go. You've got to think practically. This isn't a thing of going like, oh, if the watch stops, it's a shame. It's like, no, he needs a watch. He needs it running. So you've got to back up. And that's why, I'm sure there's all kinds of systems that have backups and redundancies and things like that. So Angus has those 3 watches to take. But as I say, those exact watches we're not selling. However, those free watches, it's for Angus to use to help promote afterwards, and hopefully keep one watch on his wrist and continue to wear it, assuming he, at the end of it, he's not sick and tired of looking at the Fears Experimental 01.
Yeah, that would never be the case. Yeah, that's going to stay on my wrist the rest of my life. But yeah, and then hopefully the other two, we're going to be doing an auctioning process at the end of the campaign to see if anyone's interested in taking on the watch that's gone around Great Britain, hopefully set a world record. And any funds that we raise from that will be going straight to James's place to help us try and hit that £250,000 that we're trying to raise.
Excellent stuff. Now, I'm sure there'd be a huge amount of interest in it. I mean, it's a brilliant story. And will you, in light of the fact that you'll auction a couple of them off, or at least one maybe, would you cycle through the watches on your journey so each has been worn by you while you've been completing the circuit?
I hadn't actually thought about that, and I probably will, because the downside of rowing around Britain is that everything starts to smell pretty quickly. So
you're really selling these watches.
Yeah, canvas strap is amazing, but probably going to need to give one a little bit of a break and put on another one. So yeah, I'd like to wear all three and make sure that all three are part of the journey and the story.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea. I could certainly, I'd be interested in bidding myself, because I absolutely love the watch, and I think that the 8 distinct modifications made to it are just great talking points, and exactly the kind of thing that watch nerds all around the world will salivate over. I went to my word. I'm not allowed to say. Scarlett always gets angry at me when I say salivate. She thinks it's disgusting. But you know what? People get incited by them. So, is this partnership going to continue? Will you do more experiments together? Will you do more events together? Where can people meet you, Angus, and hear your story in person? Because it is great. You've got a wonderful presence on stage. I'm sure people would like to come and get to know you as well. So tell us what the future holds.
Yeah, so for now, my vision on the future is very much focused on getting the boat on the water and starting this row. We had some setbacks last week with some electrical problems, and yesterday a mechanical problem. So I'm working on that. And then once I'm on the water, we'll definitely be creating what's the next 6 months in the year look like. But I would love to be with the Fears team again and sit down and tell the story of what it was actually like to row around Britain. What did I mentally go through, and what did I discover in myself, and also help other people, but also just to share that kind of beauty of Britain and some of the things that I saw as we're going around. So whether that's going to be something that I come down to the Fears office in Bristol, or we do something else in London, there's going to be opportunities to hear the story and see the partnership in real life. But that will probably be announced post-row.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah, I hope we get an invite to the next one. Hint, hint, Nicholas. Love to be there.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, I heard that. I mean, it's worth saying. I mean, I'm certainly very hopeful that we'll be able to work on future things together, because there's a reason we called this watch Experimental 01. There are quite a few things that we've designed in it and created in it that we're very, very excited to take the learnings from, because, after, 60 days of being, worn and used, for us, we will want to examine the watches afterwards and see how they worked, and things that we learn from that will then make their way into future, core product that we make. For us, this isn't a case of just going, oh, well, here's this guy going to do this incredible thing. Let's just give him a watch and get some nice photos. I think people will probably understand by now, when Fears do something, we do it properly. And as I keep reminding the team, like, this is a tool, not a toy. Like, this is a thing for us to learn from. And it's got to be, as functional as, a Garmin satellite navigation system, etc. So yeah, I'm very excited to be continuing to work with Angus, and, for us to be able to learn more, because we have the technical ability to make tool watches. It's really good to then have the real world data to back it up as well.
Yeah, I've got to say, you've handled this transition from dressier watches to a tool watch so fluidly. It's masterful. I never would have seen the Brunswick as a canvas for this kind of active adventure watch, and yet it works perfectly. It doesn't feel in any way forced. It feels like it was always part of the plan. So good on you, Angus, for sending that speculative email, and you sent it to the right. Yeah. That's this show. One last question before we go, because I know we have to move on quickly. Angus, how long is it going to take you, do you think, to get around the whole country?
It's, a hard one. So I've designed the boat with the naval architect to take 60 days worth of food. The fastest a 4-man team has taken to go around, I think it's 29 days, nearly 30 days. So in my head, I'm kind of mentally preparing for 30 to 60 days. If it's any more than that, then I've got to get pretty good at fishing, which I'm not good at. The hope is 60 days, I'll be back on dry land, and we would have raised a very decent amount of money for the charity. And if I don't make it around in 60 days, then there's another opportunity for somebody else to come in and kind of maybe take over my campaign and take the boat and try it again, raising awareness and funds for the same charity. That's the plan B at the moment. But at the moment, we're doing everything we can to make sure that plan A is a success, and working with partners like Fears is making that happen.
Well, we wish you all the best for the endeavour. And by the time you hear this, listeners, Angus will have set off on his voyage. So I'm sure you can follow along. You can check him out on Instagram at AngusCollinsBE. That's Angus Collins B. Give them a follow along on this adventure. Obviously, if you're not following Fears already, then go over there and follow them at Fears Watchers, FEARSWATCHES. And also the lovely Nicholas Bowman-Scargill can be found at Nicholas Bowman-Scargill, all one word, no hyphens, on Instagram. That's at NicholasBowman-Scargill. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Thank you, Angus, for sharing your mental health journey with us. And thanks to both of you for creating such an exciting moment in British watchmaking. And lastly, I would encourage everyone to donate to James's Place. Where can they do that, Angus?
Yeah, so GB Odyssey, so it's Golf Bravo Odyssey.com. That will have the tracker on there that will show where I am, watching me very slowly plod around the British Isles. And then on there, there's also a link to the Just Giving page where all the money that comes in goes directly to James's Place. Quick shout out to James's Place. They've worked out in the last year that it's costing them around £1,800 to put one person through a whole treatment from a suicidal period to back up on their feet. So in the grand scheme of things, not a lot of money. So every penny, every pound makes a massive difference. And they're a very lean, efficient charity that's making massive changes to people's lives. So that's on the Just Giving page on gbodyssey.com.
Thanks very much, man. If our listeners have any questions for Angus or for Nicholas, then please do get in touch via the usual channels. You can email me at rob@therealtime.show or contact us via our Instagram handle at therealtime.show or via the contact form on the official website www.therealtime.show. If you'd like to join in with our watch-related discussions, then you can become a member of the Real Time Show Network. Just text us, email us, get in touch and let us know you'd like to be part of it, and we will add you to the group on WhatsApp. We'll be back soon with more top quality watch content and interviews with the industry's finest. Until then, stay safe and keep on ticking.